American families. What do we have in common? How do we differ and why? What are the factors that make us thrive or fall into poverty? How do our parents' occupations, neighborhoods, and other factors influence our success? For 50 years, the Panel Study of Income Dynamics, or PSID, has been exploring these and other questions to help better form public policy and improve our quality of life.
PSID is the longest-running nationally representative panel survey, which is a longitudinal survey in the United States. We follow families. We'll follow their children, their children's children, their children's children. In fact, I think we have some families that have 7 generations in the PSID.
It began in 1968, the year Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and the Vietnam War had no end in sight. But there was another war going on.
This administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
To help better understand the dynamics of poverty and the effectiveness of its new programs, the Johnson administration's Office of Economic Opportunity approached researcher Jim Morgan at the University of Michigan's Institute for Social Research to help implement a study. The team developed an innovative panel study design that would follow the same families year after year, instead of selecting new random samples each year. Frank Stafford joined Morgan's team as a doctoral fellow and is still doing work on the study today.
The first important finding was that in one year a family could be in poverty, but the next year they could be out of poverty, and that there were many transitions into and out. The news experts were convinced without any evidence that there's this persistent culture of poverty. Nobody gets out. This was a hallmark finding, which is still true today.
It's a real example of how some people were foresighted 50 years ago and made the effort to start something, which at the time was for a clear societal need, that over time we also realized was important for scientific research and a really broader range of policy questions.
As American families and the economy have changed over time, so has the study. Despite budget cuts and changes in funding sources, the survey has continued to expand its scope, adding expanding questions on health and life satisfaction, as well as supplemental studies, including the Child Development Supplement, the Transition into Adulthood Supplement, the Disability and Use of Time Supplement, and the Well-Being and Daily Life Supplement. Same-sex couples and recent immigrants have also been added to ensure the survey remains representative.
The interviewers build a rapport, I think, with our respondents. And some of the respondents who've been in the surveys for so long are excited, yes, I've been waiting for your call. So we get 93, 94% of the people who we interviewed 2 years ago interviewing again.
Following Jim Morgan as PSID director, researcher Greg Duncan continued to examine both the transitory nature and the persistence of poverty, concluding that the heterogeneous nature of poverty experiences demands a heterogeneous set of policies to address the needs they create. This led to additional research by Mary Jo Bain and David Elwood on the dynamics of welfare participation, which played a key role in the welfare reform debates of the mid-1990s.
The PSID gives us data that is really not available anywhere else. It gives us data on important variables like household consumption, which is really important for a range of macroeconomic questions. That's information we don't get from other sources. We certainly don't get another source that can tell us how much a household spent on rent or spent on transportation in 1972, and how that's changed over time for members of that household or for new generations.
The research I'm most struck by is talking about how profound the effects are of deprivation early in childhood. So the effects of being a very small child, say in the 0 to 5 range, and if you have deprivation, if you have hardship during that time, how that lasts, 30, 40, 50 years, you're still more likely to have severe health effects, even to die younger. And I think that's something we wouldn't know without the PSID. As policymakers are weighing, what's the importance of investing in kids when they're really young, investing in Head Start or food stamps or childhood nutrition. This really lets you trace out the effects over a person's lifetime and not just in their first couple of years of life.
Some of the most notable PSID users are the Nobel Prize winners. So there's 11 of them. Jim Heckman and Angus Deaton both served on our PSID board. In fact, Professor Deaton said that the PSID has been an essential data backbone for economics and for social science for half a century. Perhaps its most extraordinary achievement is the way that it has changed and grown with the interest of the scientists who use it, not only following developing interests, but often leading the way into new territory. It truly is a national treasure.
Most research studies, you have a project and then people work with it, and after time, the use of the study for research purposes becomes less and less. What's unusual about the panel study of income dynamics is that through the years, the use and range and extent and quality of publications has become greater and greater.
We've also won awards from the National Science Foundation. NSF gave awards for the Nifty 50. So when they turned 50, they said, oh, well, PSID is one of the key accomplishments that NSF funded. And again, when they turned 60, we were part of their celebration. We also received funding from the National Institute on Aging and National Institute of Child Health and Human Development.
With nearly 30,000 users and 5,000 publications, PSID makes its data available at no charge to researchers.
It's really available on a very open and equal access basis to researchers all over the country.
The PSID has done an incredible job investing in online infrastructure and ways to access the data, because it's a really crucial resource. It tells the story of this country in a way that nothing else does.
The impact of PSID has been global and has inspired similar studies in the UK, Germany, and beyond.
So everybody says, oh, PSID, you have your 50th anniversary. What's the next 50 years look like? So that's a challenge, is where do we take PSID?
PSID will be looking to increase online data collection, taking a closer look at immigrants and health, and examining the impact of retiring baby boomers and intergenerational relationships on families.
How do those intergenerational impacts affect their income or their health or their general well-being? And I think that's what we'll look for the future. PSID is America's family tree, because we can follow these families through and watch the tree grow and create new branches and new leaves and new families.